Hi, thanks for tuning in to Turn to the Stars. My name is Andrea Klim, and I want to say thank you for tuning in today. Today is March 26, 2013, and we have a really great guest who's going to be joining me on the phone from Guernsey in the British Isles, which is right below England and above France. And welcome, Sharon.
Hi, Andrea. Hi, everybody.
Hi, Sharon. It's so great to have you back on the show. Sharon has been a guest on the show before. She's the author of Albertine's Treasure, and she's a great astrologer. And I've asked her to join me today to talk about Saturn in Scorpio, Saturn's path through the constellation of Scorpio, which really began back in October of 2012 and stays in this constellation on its journey through the sign of Scorpio through 2015. And we're going to be talking about tools for management today. So, Sharon and I have been having a discussion just before we came on air here to start recording today about Saturn and Scorpio and how important it is to make Saturn your friend, because it is one of those planets that does really sort of test us to stay in the light and the positivity of things. And wouldn't you agree, Sharon?
Absolutely, Andrea. I think Saturn is a planet that has a profound effect on everybody, and I think in particular at the moment Saturn in Scorpio, the sign of Scorpio, is really putting us to task. I mean, Saturn is the taskmaster. He wants us to work and to be responsible, and when we respond to that, then absolutely we get the rewards. And Saturn into Scorpio, I think for me, is very much about being the rebuilder, that we may have to take down some of our structures in order to rebuild something better. So that's the way I kind of feel about it.
I totally agree with you. The Saturn's transits and Saturn cycles can be considered cycles of achievement and maturity. I always think of that we need to, when I start feeling the energy of Saturn, I was saying this to Sharon before, that she has a character in her book, there's a character that she talks about who is harsh reality, and for me, Saturn is harsh reality.
He is. He doesn't mess around. He's not a fluffy little bunny, Saturn. He's a planet that brings responsibility and structure and order, and he asks for discipline, and he's all about karma. So he's a hefty influence, isn't he? He's not all sunshine and daisies, huh?
Yeah, no, absolutely not. And it's interesting because for those of the people who have the fixed signs in their astrology charts, Scorpio, Taurus, Aquarius, and Leo. We're the ones that will be most influenced by this transit of Saturn through Scorpio.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We're the ones that'll undergo the changes, and those of us who work with Saturn, and those of us who have strong fixed signs, that sun sign in one of the fixed signs, or even your moon or your ascendant, it will still affect you quite profoundly. And those of us who respond to the call of Saturn will do okay. We'll come out. Well, we may have some of the most challenging experiences, but we're also the best equipped to deal with it. We have the most kind of strength, I think.
Oh, I agree. The strongest signs of the zodiac are the fixed signs. They're the survivors, and
absolutely.
So we thought it would be really great for all of you who have these fixed signs in your astrology chart to talk about tools for management, because Saturn, when it makes hard aspects to our other fixed planets in our charts, it does challenge us to slow down, to smell the coffee, so to speak.
Well, it's a kind of block, isn't it? Saturn stands in front of you and says, "Stop."
Yes.
And you're right. I mean, all you can do is stand and smell the coffee. Often you can feel that there's nowhere else to move. There's a box around you with Saturn, and if people are feeling that way at the moment, it's important for them to stand still. And as you say, smell the coffee, and just learn to be patient and learn to know. I think the greatest challenge, is learning to know when to push forward and when to change direction.
Absolutely, and it's sort of a time where the universe is saying to us, pause. Don't have to completely stop, but do pause, do slow down.
Have a rethink.
Yes, and it's
sorry, Andrew, but sorry, I was just going to say the Saturn in Scorpio, I think it's very much about digging down inside yourself, that if you find you can't move forward, perhaps Saturn in Scorpio is asking you to look deep inside. Perhaps there's some things, especially for the fixed signs, especially for Scorpio, Taurus, Leo, and Aquarius, those signs feature strongly in their charts. It's very much about looking right down deep, and perhaps there are internal structures that need bringing up. Perhaps the picture I got was an excavation of a tomb, of digging down and bringing up possessions or precious gifts that we'd forgotten we had.
Yes, absolutely. And identification with Saturn and Scorpio, the identification of the things that really won't be working so well for us anymore, and it's about a transformation and about
absolutely
right.
Spot on. It's about saying this. It's about digging deep down inside and saying, right, this I've just brought up, I no longer need. I need to remove this from my life. It's no longer useful for me, and it's actually just creating a blockage. This I brought up is actually a gift or a tool or a strength I'd forgotten I had, so I need to bring this out to the light.
Yes, absolutely. We have a chart, which is our number one chart, which is Saturn's entrance into Scorpio, which we have on the screen. And you can actually see this about 1 o'clock in this chart. You can see Saturn. This was back in October of 2012, and Saturn is the green symbol around 1 o'clock that looks like a cross with a crescent tail, so to speak. And you can see it at 0 degrees Scorpio and 0 minutes back in October of 2012 when it first entered. And so it's kind of interesting to see what that looked like out in the universe for our viewers. And because it is a couple year transit through this constellation. And what it does is, as you were saying, Sharon, it does give us the opportunity to gain that inner strength, to become more responsible for what we do and say, and to cut out waste or excesses in our life. And I always think about Scorpio as a planet that helps us to recuperate from things that may have pulled us down. And Saturn...
Yeah, it's the phoenix from the ashes, isn't it?
It really is. And I always think about Harry Potter, the phoenix in Harry Potter with, there's the death and the rebirth. Poof. It's very magical.
Absolutely. And sometimes we have to let go of something in order to experience something better or something different and something more. It's about transformation, isn't it? And we have to allow that transformation with Saturn and Scorpio.
It is certainly that. And, I'm so excited that Sharon's on the phone because we're bringing two sides of the world together here. It's actually about 4 o'clock, 4:30 over in Guernsey. Yeah, so Sharon is, really, really wonderful to join us on Turn to the Stars today and share her insight. I have a lot of respect for Sharon. I just think she's a great person. And so to bring the two sides of the world together, I'm so excited about our connection. And
yeah, it's great. It's a great connection, and it's so much fun, and it's so enjoyable to speak with somebody else who's so knowledgeable too. So it's a great exchange of knowledge and information, huh?
Yeah, it is, and it's interesting. My husband this morning, Sharon, was showing me on YouTube a video by Rush, and it was really interesting because it had planets in it, and it was it was a song that talked about the gamble of life and the changes that we experience, and that we need to be brave, and that we need to overcome the things that tend to be dark or sad or that pull us down in our life's path.
Absolutely, and I think it's really important, as you said before, that we will recognise that perhaps what we've forgotten, and perhaps what Saturn and Scorpio is telling us, that we have incredible strengths, and all of us have the power to overcome whatever we're confronted with. And it is, it's a challenge sometimes with Saturn and Scorpio, the way that it manifests in our lives. But it's important to recognise that it's a process of change. Nothing ever really ends; it just changes form. So for people who are perhaps going through crises or feeling depressed or feeling low, it's not a permanent situation. It's a process of transformation. There are no dead ends in reality.
Right. And it's about, I agree with you on that. And, Saturn I always see as the planet that says, there are tools available to you if you just look for them. And, we are working with Saturn and Scorpio. We're working on getting rid of things you might want to call junk or garbage or stuff that makes us sick. Right.
Absolutely. We were talking the other day on the phone, Andrea, if you recall, and we were talking about how Saturn and Scorpio can present you with, if you like, the feeling that there's a brick wall in front of you. And if people are suffering from that, and perhaps their mood is a little bit lower than it normally is, it's really important to embrace that feeling. And I don't mean to wallow in it, but to actually say, this feeling I have, I respect this feeling, I honor this feeling that Saturn has brought into my life, and I want to delve down into myself and see what I can discover as to why I feel the way I do. Why are my feelings blocked? Why do I feel low? And I think that one of the ways of doing this, I used to call it pearl diving. And that is to sit and visualize yourself moving down through a dark body of water and feeling very comfortable and safe in that dark body of water. And when you get to the bottom of this pool, just feeling around, and you'll find there are little objects. And when you come up to the surface with these objects in your hand and look at them, very often the first thing you see in your mind's eye will be the thing that is blocking you, or it'll be a clue, or it'll be a sign, or it'll be a piece of information, but it will help you. And these are your own pearls of wisdom that you've forgotten, and this is what your mood is asking you to do, to reach down inside yourself and retrieve them. They're your tools, as you said, Andrea, tools.
Yeah, I love the way you describe that. It's really diving into the mystery of what it is that has brought us to these feelings, and really aligning with them.
Absolutely, and because Scorpio is very much associated with the unconscious, it's really important that we're not afraid of our own unconscious, we're not afraid of our own shadows, we're not afraid of our own depths. And I think the more that we confront our own depths, the more that we're ready to face our own shadows, the more we'll find the sunlight at the end.
That is true, and it was interesting. Not every day, but I like to put a little something if I get these thoughts coming into my head, and I put them on Facebook. And last week I had written one thinking about Saturn and Scorpio, and I wrote, the process of change takes time on this earth, especially for those who innately have a strong will. It took lifetimes to grow strong, and it will take much time and love to accept and trust that good changes can happen in the Earth's time.
Yeah, that's beautiful, beautifully put, absolutely. Because we talk about the fixed signs being strong in particular, but also strength comes from being flexible too, and from accepting and from being willing to change. And it's very important that people are willing to change as well, and they will find that the light comes into their lives in a very brilliant way once they've got through this particular phase.
It is, and it's about trusting too. Saturn wants us to trust and know that this process of transformation, which is Scorpio, has a path. It has a journey that it takes us on, and it is a process of, realizing what is about to change, accepting it, as you talked about with, diving for pearls, and then coming up and out into the light, and sort of like an eagle does, flying up and into the heavens, so to speak, with the mysteries uncovered or unveiled. And so that it is a really incredibly intense process, but also it is interesting if you're one of those people that is a great detective. It would probably make your path a little easier.
Yeah. If you're naturally inclined to look to look deeply, then it will suit your temperament. It's like any, some things suit people, certain temperaments better than others, and definitely it's very important that people recognize that within themselves. It's one of the things I was thinking was that it's very important for people not to distract themselves from Saturn by superficial pastimes or distractions, that they do really look at the depth of life, and that will bring the rewards.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
Detectives out there will soon find themselves in a good place.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I also wanted to mention motives, and I was thinking about how with Saturn, that if you have underhand or selfish motives with Saturn and Scorpio, it's a very karmic energy, isn't it? And I think if people are behaving in a selfish or underhand way, whether we're talking about on a world leader level or whether we're talking about on an individual level, they will meet dead ends. It's very important that people must remember to love and to forgive themselves and to work with the highest motives when Saturn's in Scorpio, and then they will truly and absolutely reap the amazing rewards. So it's all about motives to me.
Yeah, that is very true, and it's interesting because I find music to be very, very healing, and when my daughter's really good at bringing out music that is really helpful. And there's a song that is, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Florence and the Machine.
Yep.
And it's called Shake It Out. And her, in the words of the song, it's interesting because this song is not very old. And she talks about regrets we collect like old friends. And that every demon has wants its pound of flesh. So it's kind of an interesting song that does kind of lead. I think it's very connected with Saturn and Scorpio because she says in there it's always darkest before the dawn.
Absolutely, and that is incredibly Saturn and Scorpio, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, but there's no way that dark can stay when the light comes. You know, there's no light without the dark, and there's no dark without the light. There's a balance.
Absolutely. And even though people may find within their personal lives that they seem to be surrounded by darkness, but just a little bit of faith will soon show them that the darkness is, in essence, it's a kind of illusion. The light is always there. It's just we can't see it. Perhaps we've got our eyes closed. Perhaps we've got our minds closed or our hearts closed. And it's important to open all of those things to allow the positive energy of Saturn and Scorpio to make the changes so that people can live within the light and actually experience it directly.
Absolutely. It is a very powerful process of alchemy, and it is certainly one that we can all overcome, and it is one that we want to really, sometimes it's really hard to look to the bottom of the pool. But,
sometimes we'd rather not.
Yes, right. So for everyone out there, if you're having some of these, fears of change, fears of loss, hard work is definitely one of the ways to develop a positive outlook. So you want to work hard on aligning with this process, understand it, and realize it is a means to a better end, and that you are in a process that is probably one of the tougher cycles in your life, but however, one of the most rewarding.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when people open their minds and hearts to Saturn and they start to, one of the main things with Scorpio is to trust your instincts, is to connect with the deeper parts of yourself, is to connect with your unconscious urges and feelings, and actually learn to read and to receive the messages that your own inner workings are giving you. And when you do that, you'll know when you're presented with a door whether you need to push it and kick it or whether you need to walk away and go towards another door. And that's the art of managing Saturn, is understanding the difference. And you'll do that by really honoring and connecting with every part of yourself, and like you say, not shying away from the bottom of that pool.
Right, absolutely. And it was funny, I remember when we were talking to plan the show, Sharon said that she thought it would be really appropriate to have the picture of a lion tamer behind us because Saturn in Scorpio is sort of like that. It's taming that side of us that is so strong. And, one thing I know about fixed signs, Sharon, the fixed signs of the zodiac, the Scorpio, the Taurus, the Leo, and the Aquarius, that they are so strong that they forget that there's something bigger than us. Sometimes that we're so strong that we forget that. And I got reminded of that in a very powerful way, and I'm really grateful for that, because we get stuck in these patterns and these cycles in our life, especially the fixed signs, because we're reluctant to change. We kind of get, it's like getting your foot stuck in cement. And and so Saturn comes along and says there's a way out. Saturn in Scorpio says there is a way out. Let's look at what's going on. And so it does sort of say, okay, it's time to look at what we need to shed.
Shedding,
right.
That's a good word, isn't it? What do we need to let go of?
Right.
And we may see that initially as a loss, and we may fear that loss, as you were saying, that people may be fearing, but it's not a loss, because it's something that's unnecessary, because in actual truth, anything which is completely necessary in our lives stays. It's the nature of the universe, so anything we're losing is not necessary and was never ours.
Right. And one of the other things we talked about is, the cycles of life and change. And we did talk too a little bit about, the new Pope that came into his time of being the religious Catholic leader. And I believe it's his name is Francis, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so we were talking about that too, and that transformation, and that's a very powerful one, and what kind of influence that is having on the world.
Yeah,
and what
Saturn in Scorpio and Pluto in Capricorn, that's a very authoritarian influence, isn't it? It's very conventional and very, very structured. So it'd be very interesting to see how his personal perspective and opinions color the energy of the church.
Right, absolutely, because Saturn is the energy of Saturn is very, very strict, and his personal values and his own personal takes, and what we've had a lot of talk in the Catholic Church about the difficulties from the past with the sexuality and the problems and so I believe that one of his biggest tasks is going to be the resolving and healing of this.
But he can certainly use the energy of Saturn in Scorpio to bring it up and bring up the truth. Essentially, I think that if somebody does something with good integrity and pure morals, then they will dig up the truth and it will be exposed to the light. And that is part of the transformational part, isn't it, of Saturn in Scorpio?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think so, and I think it's a good time right now for us to show the time when Saturn leaves Scorpio. We do have a chart that shows that, and we can see that that actually happens for the last time. Let's see here, in December. September 17th of 2015 is the last time that we see Saturn. Saturn
Scorpio going into Sagittarius.
Right, and you can see that in this chart at about, 1, 2, 3, 4, around 4 o'clock, 4 or 5 o'clock, we see that symbol for Saturn to the right on the bottom of the chart on the screen. There's what looks like a green cross with a little crescent tail, and you see it at 0 degrees Sagittarius, and this is September of 2015, when we complete this cycle of Saturn moving through the constellation of Scorpio.
Absolutely, and that's another 30-year cycle. An interesting point I noticed the other day was because Saturn is actually retrograde as well, isn't it, at the moment?
It is, yes, it is till July.
That's right, and I was just looking at some of the energies that were around, and actually when Saturn is leaving, we'll go on to the retrograde in a moment, Andrea, sorry, when Saturn's leaving Scorpio, I kind of looked at that chart, and I looked at the connection with Saturn to the planets of Neptune and Mars and Pluto, and I wonder from looking at the whole of the chart whether there's a huge change when Saturn moves into Sagittarius, and I wonder whether there's going to be some kind of expansion, and I do think there's going to be a change with regards to a world leader, perhaps a demise of a particular leader, but something quite profound I think is going to happen when Saturn moves into Sagittarius then.
Yeah, I think that you might be right about that. It is, at this time, we have a couple years of experience where we are, but it's great to have a perspective of what would be next, and what we have to look forward to. So it certainly, while we're retrograde, we are retracing. We're going back over, right, and going back.
Absolutely. No, I think the retrograde influence is very interesting. Last time Saturn was retrograde in Scorpio was February to July 1984. And I found what was quite interesting was on April the 23rd in 1984, the AIDS virus was identified, which laid the way for medical and pharmaceutical products to be developed in order to help the suffering. So I thought that Saturn in Scorpio was very much about bringing up something, and also Jupiter was influential at the time. So it's about knowledge and bringing up something to the light so that it could be dealt with, because up until that point, people didn't know what the virus was and they didn't know how to treat it. So I thought that was quite an interesting manifestation of Saturn in Scorpio retrograde.
Yeah, that is a really interesting point, and we're about 3 minutes from the end of the show, and I'm really thrilled that we're being able to talk about the manifestations of Saturn as it moves through Scorpio, and what we have coming next would be it's really interesting, because the first lunar eclipse, which is on April, let me just double check that date, but I believe that is April 24th.
That's right, yep, you got it.
Yeah, April 25th, I'm sorry. And that's, we have that chart on the screen right now. And that is a lunar eclipse. And it's going to be right next to Saturn in Scorpio. So I've been really thinking about this for quite some time because a lunar eclipse is very much about our emotions, our feelings, but it's also about our relationships going through a really incredibly intense transformation. And
definitely.
Yeah, and that one is again April 25th of 2013, and I think that's probably what our next show is going to be about, is talking about these fixed eclipses coming up April 25th with a solar eclipse at 19 degrees of Taurus on May 9th, and then a final lunar eclipse on May 24th. And so these are really, this is food for thought for our next show. And with these fixed eclipses, we are the word change, the word transformation, and us moving through these times of change is really what is in our path. So it's important that we shed some light on that. And
absolutely, Andrea, it's brilliant. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and so Saturn, on that eclipse, with that lunar eclipse in Scorpio, that's really going to be, talking about some more tools for managing, this time of change.
There's definitely going to be some incredibly strong energies there, incredibly strong, and maybe perhaps we need to look at shedding some light on those configurations.
Yeah, so it looks like we're going to have to talk about what our next show is, and hopefully everyone that's watching is going to tune in and watch us on Turn to the Stars. I do want to say thank you, Sharon, for joining us all the way from Guernsey.
Oh, thank you, Andrew. It was a pleasure, as usual. It was lovely to speak to you.
And you as well. And I want to say to everyone who's watched Turn to the Stars with us this week, thanks for tuning in, and we hope that your experience with Saturn in Scorpio over the course of the next couple years is one that it comes with grace and ease, and we wish you all many easy processes and transformations in your life. So until next week, thank you for tuning in, and we hope you have a great week.